Good morning, everyone. It's March 6th, and we're starting our planning board meeting. The first item is item 1B, approval of minutes. Do I have a motion for approval of minutes of February 20th, 2025?
Yeah, move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Our next item is item 1C, Silver Spring Design Advisory Panel reappointment of Praj Kaspakar to a second 2-year term. Do I have a motion for approval?
Yeah, move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it, 5-0. Next is item 3, regulatory extension requests. Hussein Residence Preliminary Plan Number 1, 2023-0140, regulatory review extension request number 3. Do I have a motion for approval?
Yeah, move to approve the extension request.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. Next, we will have item 4, our roundtable discussion with the Parks Director, Mitty Figueredo. Welcome.
Thank you and good morning. So today, during our short presentation this morning, we're going to be focusing on what we do in the Parks Department to collaborate across divisions and really even across departments sometimes. This opening photo here is from our recent celebration of employees who have been with the commission and are celebrating their anniversaries for 5, 10, 15, and 20 years, and we had employees, again, from divisions all across the Parks Department, so we could thank them for their years of service and show them our appreciation for their hard work. So in the last week of January, we also had our training week, where, again, we have staff that come from all over the department to come together and learn new skills and brush up on the old skills that they have, and we had over 500 participants. This effort was led by our training team, which is led by Gronya O'Malley Sen, and we have a short video here to share with you.
This year's training week was a great success. Over 500 staff members participated in training week. We had over 30 training sessions across 4 locations: Wheaton, Saddlebrook, Green Farm, and online. From learning to use Microsoft Outlook, Excel, and Copilot, to exploring diversity, equity, and inclusion, project management, and leadership, our training topics were diverse and enriching.
What I really enjoy about Training Week is the variety of trainings throughout the entire week. And also, I appreciate the speakers themselves, the professionalism and their experiences, and the open discussions that they promote within each training.
Each day, participants started with tasty refreshment and freshly brewed coffee. They also had the chance to win exciting prizes in our daily raffles with beautiful swags. One of the highlights was the Connecting with Colleagues session, where teams built Lego structures and talked about their project. They were able to have fun and network with their colleagues in a meaningful way, while also enjoyed a delicious catered lunch. The training team would like to thank those involved, particularly our wonderful training committee members and our internal trainers, for making this year's training week a success. We hope you learned a lot and will apply your new skills to your work. See you at next year's training week.
Yeah, so it was highly successful, but from the broad to the incredibly specific, in February, HEFI, the Horticulture, Forestry, and Environmental Education Division, also conducted their own training. It was a chainsaw training. So over the course of 2 days, they had 24 employees from Northern Parks who learned about the basic components of a chainsaw, how to use personal protective equipment, or what we call PPE. They learned how to start a chainsaw correctly, how to cut correctly, the right body positioning, so you have the right chainsaw techniques. They had hands-on cutting activities so they could practice what they were learning, and they also learned some safety measures like CPR and how to we hope injuries don't happen, but just in case, we want our employees to be prepared. We had recently our nature centers hosted a bi-county nature center gathering. It was attended by over 50 nature center staff from Montgomery Parks and Prince George's DPR, because they also have nature centers. And their goals were to get to know each other better, to build stronger relationships. They wanted to share ideas and best practices, and also facilitate better ongoing communication and collaboration. So they had conversations about things like programming for teens and seniors, bilingual programs, animal enrichment and training, because as you may all know, we have animals at our nature centers that we take care of, and they're also part of our programming. So they learned about effective programming with animals. They discussed topics in interpretation and interpretive techniques, nature play space ideas, how to maintain and update exhibits, marketing strategies, how to track program success, how to work with communities and friends groups, and also how to effectively manage volunteers. So as a result of this gathering, which was the first time, they are looking for opportunities for staff to shadow each other and continue learning. They're planning to conduct quarterly meetings for managers across both departments, and also planning an annual meeting for nature centers across both departments. On March 8th, we have our North Four Corners Local Park Acoustics and Ales coming up, and then another one on April 4th in Elm Street, and on May 22nd at Flower Avenue. I think last year we had some bad luck with rain, so fingers crossed this year we'll have a little bit better weather for our Acoustics and Ales events, because they're very popular. And our Wheaton Carousel ribbon cutting is scheduled for April 4th. The historic carousel was already taken apart. It was put in storage at Seneca Creek, and it's undergoing restoration in preparation for its new home at Ovid Hazen Wells. I believe Ovid Hazen Wells is scheduled to open fall of 2025, and then hopefully the carousel will be ready to go, the restored carousel, in spring of 2026. So our regional operations manager, Jen Scully, participated, from Northern Parks, participated in the 2024 Federal Duck Stamp Contest that was held in Greenwich, Connecticut. This is the only federally regulated art contest in the United States, which I did not know, and the judges are selected by the Secretary of the Department of the Interior, of course, with recommendation by peers at U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So this was an honor for Jen to be picked. The panel of judges selected the winning painting. It was by Adam Grimm. It's of two spectacled elders, and it's going to be on the 2025-26 federal duck stamp. The funds generated by the duck stamp have raised thus far over $1 billion, and this directly supports habitat conservation. So we did have a display here at Wheaton headquarters in February, thanks to Jen Scully, so people could take a look at the duck stamp art candidates. And that's all I have this morning. If you have any questions, let me know.
Any questions, comments, feedback from the board?
I really appreciate the training week. We didn't have it when I was there, so I think that it just started, and it sounds like such a great event to pull everybody and put trainings. And I'm wondering that how do you decide which topic? Is it something that is a feedback from the employees to come, or from the management, or how do we? And because I know that we have the training that the whole county does, but these are specific to the work that they do. I'm assuming that that's what is done.
I think the team pulls together input from staff in the divisions to kind of know what needs to be focused on. And you're right, the the training week, what's great about it is it really focuses everybody all at one time, puts a strong emphasis on the need for ongoing education and training, and it kind of creates its own energy around it. So I think it's been a few years now, and I think it's getting better every year.
And is it open to everyone to attend? They take maybe administratively, but can someone attend the whole week or is it just pick days?
As with pretty much all trainings, you need approval from your supervisor, and I think that people tend to gravitate towards the trainings that are most relevant to them and to their work program. But I believe that the idea is that people should be branching out and learning new things and honing their skills.
Thank you. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you again for your presentation. Yeah, it's so important, and I applaud you and your department for pushing training. It will only continue to make you such a great parks department around the country. So I appreciate that. Also, the bi-county collaboration with Prince George's County. We're a bi-county commission, and I love that you're doing that. And it's always important to learn from each other. And then I was proud to also attend the duck stamps to see them the past few weeks. It's those amazing artists, both on the adults and then the juniors. So yeah, thanks for showing those. Thank you for putting them in the lobby. So I really appreciate all your team's hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hearing no other comments or questions, thank you. And we will take a 1-minute break and start our next item number 9, legislative update, where we will discuss, or our General Counsel, Deborah Borton, will present the HB 752 Commission on State and Local Government Real Property Bearing Confederate Names item. Thank you so much. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Good morning. We're on item number 9, legislative update, where our General Counsel Deborah Borden will take us through HB 752, Commission on State and Local Government Real Property Bearing Confederate Names Bill. Welcome. We also have Jordan Balcom Colbert with her.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to let Jordan take over on this one. Jordan, you're on.
Yes, good morning, Chair Harris and members of the Planning Board. For the record, my name is Jordan Balcom Colbert. I'm the Government Affairs Liaison for the Commission. We have one matter for you this morning, which we will need a vote for support with amendments. HB 752, which you've seen before from last year. This bill establishes the Commission on State and Local Government Real Properties bearing Confederate names. Last year in 2024, the Commission voted to support this bill with amendments. It was titled HB 566. The current version of this bill addresses majority of our technical and timing issues the Commission raised last year for the bill. It was recommended last year that the Commission report that the report for the governor on this committee be due by 2030. And so the current language of the bill requires that the report to the governor be due by October 2032. One of the additional suggestions was to consider expanding the definition of Confederate names in political subdivisions, which the drafter of the bill this year and sponsor didn't quite hit on the nose. So we kept our proposed amendments, as you would see in our position statement, for them to make those changes. This is a bill that we would need a support amendment vote on. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Myself and Matt Mills actually joined the sponsors panel earlier this week, where we were asked a few questions by the committee. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Are there any questions from the board members? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve of the position statement that Ms. Colbert mentioned and that was in our package, and then with amendments? Do I have a motion to approve with amendments?
Yeah, on a motion to support the bill with amendments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, the ayes have it. Thank you so much. But I do have one question. I mean, I'm fine with it, but was there a reason for, it seems like it shouldn't take that long to form the commission and make their, I don't know, findings, but I assume that people have more experience and it takes 7 years to do that, yeah.
I think from what we put in our position statement and from both of the counties, Montgomery and Prince George's County, the average time is about 3 years because they have to go through data and records and look at the different streets to rename. So by the time this law will take effect, would probably be at the end of the year, we'll be in 2023. So that give or take a few years after that. So it seems reasonable based on a state committee versus the county.
Okay, all right, thank you so much, all right.
You're welcome.
Thank you for presenting this, and we look forward to you coming back next week on other bills. And we're going to take a 2-minute break and start our next item. Item 7, Master Plan of Highways and Transit Ways 2024 Technical Update Work Session number 2. Thank you. Good morning. We're on item number 7, Master Plan of Highways and Transitways 2024 Technical Update, work session number 2, where Sophia Ulrich will take us through this second work session. Welcome, and we look forward to it. Thank you.
Great. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Sophia Aldridge from Countywide Planning and Policy Division. And joining me here at the table today is Karen Gauss-Dewar, also from Countywide Planning. All right, so we have a very full agenda, a lot of things to talk about today. We're going through pretty much all the topics. We're going to touch on topic 1, but then spend a lot of time on some of the individual classification and speed questions. Our schedule, we are in work session 2. There's a possibility we may schedule a work session 2A for next Thursday, depending on how we do today. The original scheduled work session 3 is scheduled for the 20th, and the transmission of the planning board draft probably in mid-April. So here's the topics we're going to follow through, and I'll just get right into it. So to start with, topic 1, while there was some clear resolution from our last work session, there are some remaining issues. The first is that we have developed to really help the planning board, I think, and the general public to understand what are some of the transportation issues in the Clarksburg to Germantown area. And if we're looking at a future comprehensive study in the region, what are some of the things that have been looked at and things that we can do? And Karen is going to give a quick overview of this web app, and I believe we'll be posting this to the website later today. Karen.
Hi, Karen Gauss-Dewar for the record. I'm going to open the web application. Hold on just a moment. Let me get it to share.
I think you have to unshare the presentation. Is there a way to switch to a? I think it might just be a share.
We just want to share this.
Okay. Yeah. And just. I'm sorry, where is that? I can just X this? Okay. Okay, great.
Sorry about that. Okay, so you should be able to see the web map now. So we've made a web map that shows various transportation infrastructure in the Clarksburg to Germantown area for both highways, transitways, and bikeways, which you can see in the tabs up here. And so the purpose of this map is just to give you a better idea of what's been built, what's constructed, what's in progress, what's planned, et cetera. So we can get a better scope of which of the Scenario 1 projects have moved forward, which are still planned, et cetera, and non-Scenario 1 projects as well. So I'll go, this is the highways map, but you can also toggle to the transitways map here and the bikeways map. They might take a second to load. So here is bikeways. And so I'll just do this demo off the transitways map because it's a little bit easier to see. So we have a couple of layers here on the side. These layers just represent the status of different transitway projects. So we have partially constructed, we have transitways that are funded for construction, transitways funded for design, et cetera. And then we also have this blue highlight here. This overlays transitway projects that are part of scenario 1, so you can get a better look at those specific projects. And so you can zoom in on different areas, and you can also select a feature. So I'll select this feature here, and you'll get some information about that feature on the side. So this is the ICC, and you can see how many transit lanes it has and whether it's part of scenario 1. And then highways and bikeways are the same way. So this is just a map to help you understand the infrastructure in that area and to get a more comprehensive view of what's been built and what's still in
Could you
progress.
refresh what is scenario 1?
Scenario 1 is from the 2017 Mid-County Highway Corridor Supplemental Study, and it was the alternatives to M83. It essentially was a scenario that included the 355 BRT project, 16 intersection improvements and corridor improvements on like 5 or 6 different
Okay, so
roads.
scenario 1 was the one that was selected?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just
Yeah, and-
wanted to make sure that's what you're talking
And I think what's really important on each of these is that when you actually look at what is now advancing, you realize that scenario 1 was a snapshot in time, but there have been many things that have been advanced to some stage since 2017. So the landscape has changed. Back in 2017, I believe we still had the Quarter Cities Transitway. Now we have the Corridor Forward Plan. So a lot of changes in our master planning network and our road and transit network.
That's a very good point, and that's why that we are doing this study right now.
Yes.
Because things has changed so much since then. I totally appreciate that.
Okay, great. And again, this is listed in the staff report. You can access it now, and we will post it on our website later today.
Could you just make it easy to find the link? If we go to the website, and, you know, because I think this is magnificent. I just don't know if you just go to the website, how you can find it. Could we just go to MC Atlas and do a search for this?
Yeah, if you know the MC Atlas, Clarksburg, Germantown, and you put that in Google, you will find this link.
Just put that when it
Yeah.
comes. Okay, that's easy enough.
Yeah.
Thank
You know, we'll also have it on our project page, but again, to get to our project page, you go to the planning board website, you find, you know, like highway planning, master plan of highways, current update, and then you have to look for M83. It takes a while to, yeah, it takes a while to get there. So perfect.
Yeah, so if you go back to just highways, what was illustrative for me is that if you take off most of the if it's fully constructed before 2009, that's where you know, if you take that off, then it's, you know, there hasn't been much. Maybe it didn't need to be much after that, but it was pretty much everything was in place by 2019.
Yes, that's for sure. It is, you know, this is something that I wish we had started doing this many years ago. It's actually extremely useful. And it's difficult for us because, you know, we're not the owners of the facilities. So there's a lot of database information that is built behind this. But we've been doing a lot of work. One, working with SHA and DOT to try to, you know, get their data, but also to build our the metrics and tools that we need to use on top of that, which is, you know, something that Dave is certainly championing. So with that, I'm going to switch back to the presentation.
Thank you. This is really amazing. I really love this.
All right, and what I also mentioned for topic, let me back up here. For topic 1, it is mentioned in the staff report is that we will be coming back for work session 3 to talk about the southern segment of M83, some technical analysis that we have conducted, and in addition, some more details about the outline of the comprehensive transportation study. So will be some significant information that we're busy preparing as we speak. All right, so next, topic 2, street classification. So this one, I just want to start with this, this graphic from the Complete Streets Design Guide. One of the things that really sort of was the basis for this technical update was that we were changing the classification types, but as part of that, there are elements that are tied to it. There are design features that are tied to the street classification, and there are master plan target speeds that are assigned to the classification. So when you decide to change a street from a neighborhood connector to an area connector, that effectively changes the default target speed. And so many of the comments that we've received, especially related to speeds, where they disagree with the target speed, in some cases, people thought it was the posted speed versus the target speed, which I'll talk about. But in other cases, it was really just what they were asking for is in conflict with the Complete Streets Design Guide. And the idea is that a target is a goal. Doesn't mean it has to be feasible today. It's a long-term goal. So with that in mind, many of the comments that we received and are talking about today sort of fall into that general pattern. So we're going to go through each of them, and we may be able to skip through some of them pretty quickly. But the first one is comment 101, which is to classify Josiah Henson Parkway between East Jefferson Street and Town Road as a downtown boulevard instead of a parkway. And planning staff agrees with this. I think that short of a real development plan, the parkway seemed like the very appropriate choice, and that's what it has been for quite a while. But when you actually start looking at what is being planned on the adjacent site, a downtown boulevard, we feel like is a more appropriate classification and helps to tie the whole area sort of together. So that is our recommendation on that one.
That's a quick question on this, and I promise I will not ask questions in every. I know we have a lot to get through. But if I remember right, so we just looked at an application. My brain's not working today. We looked at sort of a change to an existing preliminary plan at the site. And if I remember the street view, there was a median with a lot of like vegetation and trees in this part of Josiah Henson Parkway, I think. So when it comes to sort of different characteristics between parkways and downtown boulevards, is that the fact that there is sort of that extensive median today, does that play into that?
Not really. Downtown boulevards could have extensive medians. I think one of the key characteristic features is a parkway is not supposed to have heavy vehicles. And parkways are really not supposed to have as much access. And if you notice, the street was built mid-block through this area, and it really wasn't probably something that I would have, if I was there at the time, I would have said, don't do that. We don't want that there because it's a parkway. But it was needed for access for that site, and so that it was approved. So already it was becoming less of a parkway, more of a boulevard.
Yeah. So in this case, the practical outcome is simply the change in the target speed?
It changes the design standards, and I believe it changes the target speed as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, great. And my only thing is interesting that the applicant or would wanted this change. I mean, that they cared enough. But is it because they want? You know why? And then they.
I think it's just. I would actually just say it's good planning. I mean, a downtown boulevard is more activated. It has ultimately slower speeds, and has more density, And so if you have a development, you probably want the development across the street to sort of mirror yours or to help enhance yours.
Great, thank you.
For the record, Richard Brockmeyer, Transportation Supervisor. I have a little background from my work in Vind County on this. They're also interested in just having a tighter street grid and having access, and the requirement for intersection spacing for a parkway is larger than for a town center boulevard.
So tighter street grid means less lanes, or what?
Basically, just the distance between intersections
Okay,
is allowed to be lesser on a
Okay.
town center boulevard than a parkway.
Okay, great, thank you.
It would be very helpful that when we change it, we know what characteristic would change. If you just very, summary that if we do it from here to here, these are the characteristic changes, because we don't know it by our heart.
Okay.
If I may, just for a moment, David Ansbacher for the record. As we go through each topic, some of these we might end up going through quite quickly. We will, unless we hear otherwise, we'll assume that you're in support of the staff's recommendation.
Okay. Next one is Arcola Avenue between Georgia Avenue and University. The comment was to classify this as a boulevard instead of an area connector. We disagree. The road is 2 to 3 lanes, and that's all it's ever going to be. It functions as a through connection, but not in a boulevard context. The next comment is Ashton Road between New Hampshire Avenue and the Howard County line. Again, the comment was made as a boulevard. It is a country connector, not an area connector, which was actually the comment. So we're recommending it remain as a country connector. Briggs Cheney between New Hampshire and Old Columbia Pike. Again, it is a 2-lane road. Through this section, it's going to remain a 2-lane road. Therefore, it's not a boulevard. An area connector is the appropriate classification here as well. Similar comment, Fairland Road between East Randolph and Old Columbia Pike. It is appropriately designated as an area connector, and that's the determination, so we disagree with the comment that was provided. Comment 62, this is a Gracefield Service Road between Gracefield Road and the Prince George's County line. The recommendation is that it be a neighborhood connector instead of a boulevard. Currently, it is a 2-lane road. However, its master plan is a 4-lane facility. Is that the reality right now? We don't know. We definitely feel like when we do our next update, we should look at this one because there were probably a lot of assumptions made when it was master planned as a boulevard. We may have to look at the traffic numbers, and that's something that we were not capable of doing in this iteration. But it definitely, I would say we can put a pin in this one and just say we disagree for now, but we'll come back the next time we do an update.
And I do support that, because when it is in the master plan, if you want to change it, even though it makes sense, it has to have some data behind.
Yes.
Yeah.
The next comment, comment 52, Notley Road between New Hampshire Avenue and Bonifant Road. It is classified as an area connector. Oh, I'm sorry, it's classified as a neighborhood connector, and then the commenter asked that it be changed to an area connector. And so we looked at it and we actually agree. It is one of the few crossings of the ICC. Some significant traffic volumes use this street. And the difference between the neighborhood and the area connector is a target speed increase of 5 miles an hour.
So the speed limit would be increased here?
The target speed would be increased from 20 to 25. And again, the speed limit is only increased when Montgomery County DOT or SHA determines that the speed limit should change. The target speed is just the goal.
So could you say target speed and design speed and speed limit? Could you explain those, please?
I'm sorry?
Target speed, design speed, and speed limit, how do they relate?
Sure. And actually, I have a slide.
Okay, you can show it later.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, excuse me. So you mentioned the average daily traffic on this stretch. How does that compare to other neighborhood connectors? I mean, is this unusually high for a neighborhood connector?
I would say it's not unusually high. It is high. A typical neighborhood connector would be somewhere around 2,000 to 3,000. So there's definitely, and again, there are not a lot of crossings of the ICC.
Yeah.
And so people use this as a way to get from point A to point B instead of traveling on, in this case, New Hampshire Avenue.
So I have another question. I think the current speed limit on this road is 30 to 35 miles per hour. Is that correct? And so the suggestion is to reduce the speed limit to 25 miles per hour? Ultimately.
I know we have a slide later on that explains the difference between posted speed limit, design speed, and target speed, but I think maybe we can get into that now because the main difference here.
Sure. So yeah, I'll just go through it verbally and then we can, or I could jump to the slide. I actually don't know how to jump to the slide. Jason knows how to do that, but I don't. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, so target speed is the master plan long-term vision of what we would like the speed limit to be. It's not any kind of mandate to change things immediately because the setting of target speeds is something that this agency doesn't control. It's governed by a lot of federal and state guidelines and rules. So in order to determine a posted speed limit, you have to do studies and you have to basically follow standards of practice. And so the Montgomery County DOT, Division of Traffic Engineering, that's one of the major things that they do. So they will not set a speed limit that is too low in many cases because it will lead to unsafe operations. So they collect speed data, they collect traffic counts, they do observations. And what's really important is that a target speed can be achieved ultimately through either congestion, the street gets congested, people slow down, or by changing the design. So as maintenance activities take place on roads that have target speeds that are higher than the current posted speed, the road agencies should be looking at changing some of the design features to help encourage slower speeds. And so that's how the process is supposed to work. Ultimately, target speeds, posted speeds, design speeds should all be the same, but today they're not because some of these roads were built a long time ago. And so, the target speed is really the master plan tool that we use to help get our streets into more of a complete streets environment throughout the county, which we admit is a big challenge. There are very few counties that have complete streets plans, and we have such a wide variety of road contexts that most complete streets plans are for cities. So we have places where we're trying to apply this, and in the rural areas, we're trying to apply this in the suburban areas, and so we realize that it's going to take a long time. Some of these streets may never get to the target speed. Some may get there very, very soon. And I will note that people probably never thought the speed limits would get as low as they did between here and the Beltway on Georgia Avenue. Never thought SHA would approve what they did, and they're 30, which is tremendous. So that a lot of progress can be made on this, and there are a lot of things that can be done, including things like speed cameras. So does that?
So how is it target speed correlated to the design speed? Because there is a design speed. I always thought that master plan has the design speed, but now I'm hearing that master plan has the target speed.
As a target speed.
And the target speed is probably less than the design speed. That's why we have issues. Because if you design it to be safe in some aspect that people can drive, and then I knew that always the posted speed was less than the design speed. So I'm confused that where the target speed fits in between those.
So if you designed a road today, your design speed and your target speed would likely be the same. Yeah, but many of our roads were designed when speed was more important than safety. That may not be fair to say it that way, but essentially. So getting these three speed metrics to align is the challenge that that Montgomery County DOT and State Highway Administration have if they want to reach zero in terms of Vision Zero. And so this master plan target speed is a tool that should help. It doesn't guarantee immediately things are going to change, but again, it is a long-term tool that we think can help significantly
Yeah, I
achieve
got
those
it. I
outcomes.
guess it's something that is introduced after Vision Zero or something to create it safer. Okay, got it. Thank you.
And as you move to back to your slides, so MCDOT and the State Highway are weighing in now on this, already have weighed in, or they'll weigh in during the, later during some?
So MCDOT has commented. We did not receive comments from State Highway Administration. I think I can reach out to them and ask if they could comment on particular aspects of the plan. Sometimes they tend to stay somewhat neutral because of, I guess, Maryland's strong, like local area planning. But if we want to get it, since they know that we're making recommendations for their facilities, which they can choose to adopt or not, usually not.
We always include SHA in our engagement. We coordinate with them. The responses that we typically get from them are largely about, tend to be less about the master plan vision and more about existing conditions or what's immediately in front of them.
Right.
But they tend to defer the master plan vision to us.
Okay, great, thank you.
I have another question. The recommendation is changing the street classification on Notley Road between New Hampshire and Bonifant from neighborhood connector to area connector. Will it change in the design of the road and new construction on the road to make it in line with the area connector?
Well, the actual design standards for a neighborhood connector and an area connector are actually the same.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the designation of target speed, which is different. And it's really to reflect the fact that the area land use context is going to be the same. It's that the traffic, some of the traffic that's using that street is not from there and is not going there. They're passing through. So they're going to be a little less sympathetic to the folks in that area, and they're likely to travel at a faster pace. Now, there could be neighborhood efforts to have traffic calming, and certainly I'll use Pliers Mill as a great example. Pliers Mill Road has tons of traffic calming devices on it, and it's difficult to travel much faster than 25.
Pliers Mill is right down the Georgia Avenue and turn right.
Yeah, so certainly this is appropriate as an area connector, and the default target speed is 25. But I would definitely say that any neighborhood and people who live on streets, if they would like lower speeds, they can go to Montgomery County DOT today, sign a petition and ask for traffic calming features and reduce speeds.
I know I have a friend that lives on this road, and it's a very tricky road, especially during rush hours, morning and evening, and it's a residential road, and the traffic from New Hampshire Avenue turning right off of Notley onto New Hampshire, and then sometimes the impossibility of turning left from Notley onto New Hampshire during the rush hour is a concern of many of the neighbors there. And the increase on the speed limit on this road is a curiosity to me because the nature of the road, it's tree lined, it's house lined, it's not a straight shot kind of a road. It's like a country road. And so the increase in the speed limit on this road is curious to me. Thanks.
So it's not increasing the speed limit, it's increasing the target speed. The speed limit today is higher than either of those two figures that we're shooting as targets. You know, even if it reduced to 25, it would be a significant improvement. And certainly, even just going from 30 to 25 as a speed limit, it saves lives. And, you know, it makes the street more walkable. You know, certainly, this is probably one street that you could say is a judgment call. I would say planning staff, we agree that area connector is more appropriate. You know, as the planning board, you could decide differently. That, you know.
This street is not walkable, by the way. It's impossible.
Chime in really quickly. The posted speed limit today on this road is 30 miles per hour. And again, just to reiterate, the primary difference between the area connector and the neighborhood connector is that area connectors have a slightly greater priority for traffic, and that is therefore reflected in the target speed being 25 miles per hour versus 25 miles per hour versus 20.
Okay, so I think it's great that now that we've had background, we should be able to go a little faster, but maybe in the future, the next time it comes around, maybe years, that maybe you could have what is the actual speed today, and then, I mean, it'd be helpful, you know, if someone, as people looking through it, they can go through. Okay, thank you, you can continue, okay.
All right, the next section on Notley Road is from Bonifant Road to the end, essentially the end of the road. It's north, the section north of Bonifant Road, and that is classified as a neighborhood connector. The comment was asking that they classify this as an area connector instead of a neighborhood connector, and this section we disagree. This road comes off essentially an area connector, which is Bonifant, and it serves the neighborhood, and it's the primary spine road that goes into a neighborhood. It fits the definition of a neighborhood connector. The next location is Good Hope Road between New Hampshire Avenue and Spencerville Road, and I highlighted that in red because in our staff report, I think we might have said Briggs Cheney, but the actual comment was to reclassify this whole section of road from a neighborhood connector into an area connector. And so what we did is we looked at this street very carefully. We have had a mandatory referral for a sidewalk project a couple years ago on this street. So we've had some presence and activity looking at conditions on the street. And after looking at the traffic volumes and really just looking at the grid of streets, we realized that the section of Good Hope Road between New Hampshire and Briggs Cheney has a lot more through traffic because it essentially is an extension of Bonifant Road. So people use that as a way to get from Bonifant to Briggs Cheney. So for that section, we're recommending that it does be, you know, that it should be classified as an area connector. But for the section of Good Hope Road from Briggs Cheney up to Spencerville Road, we feel that that is much more appropriate as a neighborhood connector. And I think if you even looked at the travel times, if someone was on Spencerville Road and they're trying to get to New Hampshire Avenue, taking Good Hope Road all the way isn't going to get you there faster. And so if you just did a Google map, you'd probably find that. So we thought breaking this out, you know, gives what we feel is like a more appropriate classification. The next comment related to Peach Orchard Road, also between Briggs Cheney and Spencerville Road. And the request, again, was for an area connector instead of a neighborhood connector. And here we disagree. The volumes on the road are quite low. It does serve a neighborhood, essentially a neighborhood connection function. And so we feel like this should not be changed. The next comment was concerning a small section of Elton Road between Avenel Garden Lane and the Prince George's County line. It's like a 150-foot section of road. It's classified as a neighborhood connector, and I believe it was classified in one of our master plans, but the commenter came back and said, like, why? And so what we did is we looked at you know, the context of the street. We looked at the Prince George's County Master Plan of Transportation, and Elton is not even a major street. It's probably equivalent to a neighborhood street in the Prince George's network. Some people do use it as a cut-through, but not to a great extent. So we do agree that it should be reclassified as a neighborhood street.
And why just this section and not the section just to the west of it?
The section to the west of it is, I believe, is a Town Center Boulevard, or Town Center Street.
So this is like a transition part of the street? before it
Yeah,
gets to Keith?
that section of Elton has like a hotel and some commercial uses in the back of the shopping center. And then once you get to this point, it becomes residential.
Okay, gotcha, thanks.
So how do we keep track of a road, keep changing classification somewhere? No.
Well, in this,
Is it important for people to know? Is there any kind of signs, or it don't matter? It just, if someone wants to develop or someone wants to do, they have to go to a table and look what is in that section.
it's more the latter, and I think the importance for this one is that when you go from a neighborhood connector, which is essentially a primary street, and is the planning is under the authority of the commission. And if you go to a neighborhood street, it's a secondary road, and the planning responsibility is the Montgomery County Department of Transportation. So we don't worry as much about those roads. We don't control many things on that, and we don't do I would say significant long-range planning. Besides looking at, you know, we want to have grids and nice logical.
I didn't know that. So you're saying that if it is a street, what happens in regard to planning is with DOT and it's not with planning. Is that what you're saying?
This road, if you agreed with our recommendation, it would be removed from the master plan of highways and transitways. It still exists as a street, and you know, we would the next time we do a master plan in this area, we would not. We generally would not address it.
Okay, that's very interesting. The other thing, I guess, that DOT is there, does it make any difference in regard to operation, like a snow removal or priority of maintenance and operation if the classification, because I know that DOT does the removal of snow and cleaning or a maintenance of the roadway based on some kind of priority.
Good question, and our friend Andrew Bossy is here from the
I know,
Montgomery
he's
County Department of
smiling back
Transportation.
there. Hi, Andrew.
Hello. Yes, Andrew Bossy, Montgomery County DOT. I'm not involved in snow response myself, but I know there is some classification ways into that. So I don't think it's a huge impact for, was it today, neighborhood connector, you said, to neighborhood street? But it could be some. Obviously, there's bigger neighborhood connectors that are around the county that are going to be higher priority than even a neighborhood connector, Elton Road. But it's probably not going to change very much for Elton Road from where they've been to where they would be.
Much as I remember, when I was at DOT, it got priority because it's limited funding, and it goes based on what is needed the most and impact people more. That it does make sense, what they did. I don't know how they do it now, so, you know.
My guess is because it's only a 150-foot section of road, when the plow comes to plow the town center street portion, they'll just finish, they'll finish the extra 150 feet and turn around and go back.
Probably correct, yeah.
All right, thank you, Andrew. All right, a comment was provided to reclassify Leland Street between Bradley Boulevard and Woodmont Avenue as a neighborhood street instead of a downtown street. And generally, we are supportive of this improvement, but currently the Bethesda plan, you know, had a public hearing on February 26th, and we encouraged the commenter to testify as part of that because it's an active master plan. We felt like that was a more appropriate place for this to take place. So hopefully that the commenter has been able to provide that comment. And actually, most of the slides I mentioned who the commenter was. The commenter is a resident of the street named Mr. Collins. And yeah, that is that.
Well, why don't you just transfer this comment to Bethesda people? They have it, rather than asking the.
So that was really the decision. When we look at projects like this, we go back to the master plan team. And if the master plan was still before the planning board, we would have, made it a recommendation. Yeah, it's now at council. So the idea was that it really should be part of that master plan, but it needs to come to the attention of council. So I forward the information to council staff, recommending this change. All right, so now we're going to move on to target speeds, and this is a slide that we showed earlier. And in general, a lot of the comments that we received sort of had to do with either a misunderstanding of what a target speed is. There was a fear that when we set a target speed that the speed limit was going to be changed to overnight. It won't. And really maybe just a lack of understanding that a target speed is a long-term goal that we'd like to see achieved, but may take a long time, and in some cases may never be actually achieved. The goal is to move closer and ultimately achieve that target speed, but if the engineering and the context just doesn't allow that to be done, then we don't want to make our roads unsafe. All right, so I'm going to go through a bunch of slides. We had a lot of comments from the Darnestown Civic Association. They looked very carefully at a lot of the roadway network. They made comments. In some places, we actually had the posted speed limit incorrect. So they helped us to identify that. And in general, they were 100% correct on almost all of their recommendations. And so when we went back and looked at it, we certainly agree, and our response is that we'll make these changes so that we don't want to have a target that's higher than the posted speed limit. That would be silly.
One thing, can I just want to thank you for bringing up the Darnestown Civic Association. We got a lot. I saw that you got a lot of comments from the Colesville Civic Association on the roadway classification. So I just want to just say a shout out to thank you civic associations for looking at being actively looking at some of the things we do, and we do appreciate your comments. So thank you.
Yes, definitely. So a lot of the comments in here, you'll see that in some cases where we have to do some resegmentation of our links to actually provide transitions and break it where the speeds have changed. And part of the issue is that Montgomery County DOT and SHA change speed limits quite a lot. We have data sources that we gather to show that, but we don't always have the most recent information. So in some places, and I know Brink Road was one location where we had, from early parts of our study, we were recommending target speeds that were higher than the posted speed limit. It was brought to our attention, and then we discovered that a work order had been issued to change the speed limit. The neighbors certainly knew about it, which tells you that the public outreach process is working. And we are working to try to sort of expedite that so that between agencies, we can, when changes are made, hopefully we can get the actual change orders for our record so that we can update our data quickly.
We have a targeted speed now for the majority of the roadways, streets, or highways that we have in the
with this master plan technical update. I think previous presentations we were going from 55% of the county covered to about 98% of the county covered. Okay. The only roads that don't have target speeds, I believe, are freeways, which are totally out of our jurisdiction, and certainly, secondary roads like neighborhood streets and neighborhood yield streets, there are target speeds in the Complete Streets Design Guide, but our master plan of highways doesn't concern
I
ourselves
got
with that.
And there is a scientific way and coordination with the other agencies to decide on those targeted speed. Okay.
Again, this is another comment in Darnestown for a particular section on Darnestown between Seneca and Turkey Foot. And so, the speed limit has been lowered in the past, and so we agreed to modify this section. Again, this is a section of Darnestown between the suburban boundary and Riffle Ford Road. This section actually has a higher speed limit today, but the areas in between have lower speed limits. And when we looked at it, we realized that a lower target speed makes sense. And so what we essentially proposed here is that the target speed should be lowered to match the posted speed limit in the portion of the segment where it's not, where the portion of the segment is not in alignment, where the speed and the classification match. Again, another comment, Seneca Road, this is in the Darnestown, sort of in the Hamlet Village area between Mockingbird Drive and Darnestown Drive. This section has a transitional lower speed limit. Again, this is just to match what is existing. And the same comment for Germantown Road, between Darnestown Road and Citizen Lane, the speed limit in this section is 30 miles an hour, so this would just conform to that. And this comment 18, this is a very long link of Darnestown, but here they felt that there was a need for a transitional piece. So this one, again, would be lowered to match the posted speed limit. Again, Brink Road, as I mentioned before, this is one that we came out of the outreach process, and we definitely agreed. The speed limit is lower, so we're going to proposing to change the target speed to match the posted speed. Lay Hill Road, there are actually two errors in our recommendations, and not quite sure how we ended up, but I think we had a target speed of 25 on this 4-lane road, which is not in our standards at all. So this would be, this street is a boulevard, and the target speed for this should be 35, not 25. And it is 35 to the south, and it's 35 to the north of this segment.
Thank you for that correction. I was going to talk about that.
Good Hope Road between New Hampshire and Spencerville. This is really addressed in the target speed section, and this is where we were recommending a splitting of the classification, which also ends up with the splitting of the target speeds on this block. On this road segment. Again, target speeds on Notley. This is also related to the comment about classification, so just repeating it for consistency. So this comment is about Colesville, Columbia Pike, from Timberwood to Burnt Mills Town Center. And the comment was to not lower the target speed from 35 to 40, which is the current posted speed, to 35. And with this one, we disagree. The land use context of this section of US 29, it essentially is a boulevard, and the 35 is the default target speed for this type of road. Other comments were made here. The section of US 29 from New Hampshire. Actually, is that the same? Further north. Okay. Oh, okay. Flip. The same comment applied here, and in some cases the speeds through this section, especially at the northern part of it, start to rise. But it still is a very residential area. And so, the concern was to keep this as a higher speed road. And on that, I think we've looked at it, and I think we agreed that it was appropriate to make a transition, maybe not this entire length, but somewhere in here. I think Burnt Hills, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, I take that back. Yeah, we agree with this recommendation.
Sorry, just real quick before we move on from this. The posted speed on this stretch is already pretty high, right? This is where it really picks up speed on Colesville. It gets, or Columbia Pike, is it like 45 here?
It's 40 and 45.
45 as it goes north from here, yeah. Forgive me, I don't remember exactly what our plans speak to in this area. I know this is obviously, we're looking at White Oak here. But have we envisioned this stretch of Columbia Pike to become something else in the future from a land use perspective? Has this been something we've talked about recently?
I don't think to a great extent. I think what it is what it.
Just to chime in a little bit, to the south of this segment is Burnt Mills. There's an existing BRT station there that's identified as a town center. There's the White Oak Town Center, part of the White Oak Science Gateway Master Plan, is also on the northern end of this segment where you see White Oak Shopping Center, and then I'm forgetting the name of the high-rise complex right there. Mm-hmm. That is all part of the town center, but in between is more of a suburban land use. Yeah. This is a challenging area because this is where we're starting to transition to more of a freeway-like condition.
Right. Right. I'm just wondering if I totally get that. It feels like we need a bit stronger of a rationale just to say it feels right in this case. I mean, because this is a target speed.
So one option would be to say that you could say instead of 35, maybe 40 is a good transitional target speed in this area because it is changing from a typical, like a town center boulevard to a suburban boulevard to a higher speed facility.
And what's the target speed right now for the segment as it passes New Hampshire going northeast?
Going to the north. Is that the next comment? Okay, so hold on. We'll just go to the next comment for a second. It looks like it's, no, that's not.
I thought it was.
Oh. Hold on a second.
You repeat the question. I can look that up.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe we can come back.
Okay.
But can you repeat that?
The question I had before that, or
what segment were you just referring to?
Oh, after it crosses the interchange with New Hampshire going northeast, kind of a Columbia Pike from that point going northeast, past the shopping center.
Since I drive that all the time, I know the posted speed is 50.
It's 50. It's pretty high.
Yeah, once you get past New Hampshire.
Yeah. So the target is likely somewhere near there.
Well, we actually have our web map that shows our recommendations, which I believe include target speeds.
Yeah, I'm going to pull that up, but I think if we could move on to the next one.
You keep going. And
so we'll come back to this.
Yeah, it looks like it's, I just found it. It looks like it's 45. Current target speed's 45 for that stretch. Okay, yeah, I take the point that this is a transition area, and the next, as we move northeast, the land uses dramatically change and becomes much more of a highway. So I guess I'm okay with this.
All right, great, thank you. The next section of road is, it was a request to not lower the target speed on Randolph Road between Serpentine Way and Fairland Road from currently the posted speed of 40 miles an hour to a target speed of 35 miles an hour. And I probably should have provided the distinction that the comment didn't specify that the 40 was a posted speed and the 35 is a target speed. But again, some of that had to do with maybe a little confusion about what a target speed is and how a target speed is implemented. And so on this one, on this one, I actually think this is this road is a boulevard, and I actually think this is a mistake. I don't think we agree. So, Richard, could you double check that in our staff report? So we'll come back to that. For the road that East Randolph Road, the way it's designed today, it's a 5-lane undivided roadway section. It is essentially a suburban boulevard. The default target speed of that is 35 miles an hour. The fact that the posted speed limit is 40 miles an hour means that we're pretty close. You know, some design treatments that could be done on a 5-lane open section road to get you down to 35 could include putting up a median, which maybe folks in that area may not want because there's a lot of left turn access for all the adjacent neighborhoods. But there are other things that could be done, and there are many streets within Montgomery County that are 4 to 5-lane roads that have 35 mile an hour posted speed limits, so it's certainly within reason. We'll come back to this, actually. Oh, and I'm sorry, this is a mistake. We disagreed with this. So we're proposing to keep it at 35. So my apologies on that. All right, next slide. Georgia Avenue. This is a pretty long section from the Aspen Hill Town Center boundary all the way up to Old Baltimore Road in Olney. And the comment essentially was saying that they don't agree to set a target speed of 35 because the posted speed on some sections, most sections of this road are somewhere in the 40 to 45 range. And, you know, we disagree. We realize that this does go through an interchange and drivers just tend to speed up through an interchange. But it is also through a section of some pretty closely spaced signals. And we think that, you know, the appropriate target speed for this should be 35. It may be challenging to do this. I think certainly down by Leisure World, I think we've somewhat gotten closer to achieving that. There is sort of a racetrack mentality, I think, when you leave Olney and you're headed south. When you get to this point, you tend to speed up, and then when you get to Aspen Hill, you slow down again. You know, but we definitely feel like a target through this section to try to reduce that speed bump through this section can certainly help to improve safety.
I have a comment. I'm looking at the map, and I thought there was a cross-section of Connecticut Avenue that goes through this roadway. And I don't see it on here.
Connecticut Avenue, and I'm going to show it on the screen. Somewhere I read I can get my cursor. There we go. Connecticut Avenue is this street down here.
Okay.
And it carries across, but it's not. It's a different classification of road because it's only like a 2 or 3 lane road.
The reason why I was bringing that up is because that intersection there is very precarious, and it's a large intersection, and the time that, and it's a heavily traveled pedestrian intersection, and it's quite dangerous, and so I could see why the speed limit should be lowered, particularly in that area, taking, you know, the amount of time it takes to cross, and then also pedestrian comfort and vision for both the drivers and the pedestrians here. It's a very, very difficult intersection.
This corridor, I mean, for instance, between Connecticut Avenue and Belpre, there have been a lot of pedestrian incidents related to bus stop access. There are not many signals between the two. So there's a lot of things where sort of more favoring, you know, the multimodal aspect versus a car-only environment is certainly important. Through this section, there are going to be places where it becomes much more car-centric, but definitely, you know, more consistency and trying to deal with those sort of those little hot spots, we think can make it a safer experience for everyone. Comment 86, again, this is the section of Lay Hill Road with the classification, and again, we agree with this one. It was really an error in our database. The next section, this is New Hampshire Avenue from Spencerville Road to Oaklawn Drive. And the comment was to not lower the target speed from 40 to 45 miles an hour, which actually is the posted speed limit today, to 35 miles per hour. And, again, the difference between posted speeds and targets for this section of road, we think 35 is the appropriate long-term target speed for this road. This comment was, again, for Norwood, and this is the section of Norwood near Sandy Spring, between 108 and New Hampshire Avenue. And the comment really was not to lower the posted speed from 40 to a target speed of 30. Again, it's very close. There is a high school. There is a lack of good pedestrian and bike facilities on this road today, which Montgomery County DO is working very hard on 2 projects at the same time, which you will see through mandatory referrals this year, which is great news. But definitely 35 is the appropriate target speed to plan for this road. For the section of Randolph Road between Colesville Town Center and Middlevale Road, again, a comment was made not to decrease the speed down to 35. And again, 35 is the target speed. Here we clearly disagree. This section of Randolph Road, people do tend to travel fast, but there are speed cameras and red light cameras and pedestrian activated crossings. There's a lot of things in this area, and there's lots of neighborhoods along the street, so this is pretty important. Comment 95, a similar comment related to Spencerville Road from Old Columbia Pike to New Hampshire Avenue. And this one pointed out that it referred to target speeds of 25 to 40, and we would be changing it to 35. And that's not actually factually correct. The speed on most of this road and where we're looking at it is 40. And so the target speed would, essentially be a 5 mile per hour reduction through this section. Again, this is a comment about Arcola Avenue, and again, it's the target speed side of the comment. And by addressing the classification, this essentially is resolved. So we disagree with the comment, but the action on the previous comment takes care of it. For Bonifant Road between Lay Hill Town Center boundary and New Hampshire Avenue, currently most of this road is posted at 35 miles per hour, and it is classified as an area connector, and the appropriate target speed on an area connector is 25 miles an hour. Heading up to Olney, this is Bowie Mill Road from the north branch of Rock Creek to Olney Laytonsville Road. And the comment here is that the speed limits here can be between 30 to 40 miles an hour. And as an area connector, the target speed on an area connector is 25 miles per hour. So there's a big difference. I will mention that Montgomery County DOT is designing bikeway facility on this road now, which will be coming, or actually has come through the board for mandatory referral. So there are some activities that are taking place to try to slow traffic down. But as you notice, this is a very straight shot and provides a pretty quick connection between 108 and essentially Muncaster Mill.
That's
to
a
the south.
tricky road because on that road, there are houses that face directly the road. And then there's part of the road at the intersection where the country club is. I forgot the name of that road that connects with it. And at that intersection, it's kind of almost like a blend of residential, commercial. But then once you head towards only Laytonsville Road, it becomes like definitely residential. And it's the lowering of the speed limit to 25 there is really appropriate because once people get up to speed and at that intersection where the light is between Bowie Mill and or only Laytonsville and the road that the country club is on, like your mindset doesn't change to automatically reduce the speed.
Right.
And so I think from the outset you should be at 25 because
It's
gonna
also
be
a road that
residential.
even with DOT's project is still missing sidewalks in places where they should have them. DOT's project is going to be adding a side path on one side of the street, which will help. And certainly at the north branch of Rock Creek, there is a trail crossing there.
And I think there might be a park somewhere along this road too.
I'm sorry?
I think there might be a park or a school or something along this road too, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, the parkland is the Rock Creek North Branch, and there is a trail, and there's actually part of the design is to provide a trail connection from the closest intersection down to that point, which was a great part of that actual bikeway project. The next street is Briggs Cheney between Gallaudet and Old Columbia Pike. And again, the posted speed on most of this road is 35. The target speed that would be set would be 25. And so we disagreed with the comment. We feel like 25 is the appropriate target speed. Another comment, this is also in Olney, Cashel from Emery Lane to Bowie Mill Road. The posted speed is 35. Our target speed would reduce it in the long term down to potentially 25.
That's the road I was talking about where the
Yeah.
country clubs look, and there's Cashel Elementary School, and then when it intersects with Bowie Mill Road up to only Laytonsville Road, it should be 25.
Yeah, and certainly, again, it's a target speed, so it wouldn't change things overnight, but it's sort of the long-term goal of where do we want our drivers to be driving, ultimately. Also in Olney, Sandy Spring area, Dr. Bird Road from Maryland 108 to the Norwood Road connection. This is also a project that has a side path facility on and some improvements planned by Montgomery County DOT. This is probably, it's sort of a borderline situation because on one side you have fields. On the other side, you have residences and daycare centers and things of that nature. So this is one that we, probably thought about a lot. 40 miles per hour as a speed limit is appropriate for a country connector. 25 miles per hour is appropriate for an area connector. So I would say this is one where we feel like this is an area connector. But there's certainly, there can be some judgment call on this. The next section of that is Ednor Road from Norwood Road to New Hampshire Avenue. Again, this goes past Woodlawn and, does have residents along it, but it's a pretty rural feeling road, but it is classified as an area connector. And because of that, the posted target speed of 35 in the long term, we would like to see it get down to 25. And I will mention that there are, I do believe that people ride horses in this area, and I know at Woodlawn, the Park Police have a stable. So they're actually, there's a mix of trail users in this part of the county. Comment 83, Fairland Road between Columbia Pike to Old Columbia Pike. And the comment again here was that, the posted speed is 35 miles an hour. Our target speed would reduce it to 25. They did not agree, and we prefer to disagree. We think 25 is an appropriate long-term target speed. Similarly, Fairland Road from East Randolph Road to Old Columbia Pike. This section of road doesn't consistently have 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. In fact, I'm not even sure that that is accurate. Large sections of this have, I believe, 30-mile-an-hour speed limits. But we feel like 25 miles per hour is an appropriate target speed for this road. This road has traffic calming in several locations. So it is not a high-speed road, although it does provide it provides the area connector function very well. All right, Hines Road in Olney between Georgia and Cashel. Again, we feel like this is definitely an area connector. The land use context is totally residential. So we feel like keeping it as an area connector and keeping the target speed, setting the target speed at 25 is the appropriate long-term solution. All right, moving over towards Wheaton. This is Arcola, Kent Mill Road from Randolph Road to Arcola, and it goes past the Wheaton Regional Park. So it's a pretty big mixture of land use changes. The posted speed is somewhere between 30 to 35. We viewed this as an area connector. And so we recommended here a target speed of 25. There are probably stretches of this where just the way the land use is, people may travel at a higher speed. So this may be one of the more challenging locations to achieve the target speed because of the long stretches of parkland. But certainly DOT has to design tools that they can use to try to achieve that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So we are defining all of these target speed. What is next? What's going to happen?
So what is next is once the target speeds are defined, and they're already defined on 55% of the county streets. When DOT does a design improvement or a maintenance project, they look at what the target speed is, they look at what the posted speed is, and as part of their budget process, they figure out, can we do something to help achieve that target? It may not be the highest priority for DOT. It may depend on the crash history of that road. It may depend on a whole bunch of factors, but it does become a part of this decision-making process. Or how do we come up with a budget and come up with improvements to help achieve?
Okay, so basically, this target speed would be a tool for future maintenance or construction on the road to see that how they could use that to reduce. But at DOT, there is no other program or anything at this point except that that's the tool that they use to see how they can achieve it and do some kind of, design or features to enforce that.
And I think the use of target speed is a great example of, we had this collaboration between our two agencies for the Complete Streets Design Guide. Target speed is a planning tool that sets a goal line, but doesn't mandate that changes be made at any particular time or with any sense of priority. It's left up to the discretion of the implementing agency.
Got it.
I would say from the planning perspective, we would prefer that if a project was put in, that they try to get that target speed, and we would probably push them through mandatory referral to reduce the target speed. And you'll probably hear, someone like myself come back on the next project that has one of these changes, and they may just not be able to do it with the budget that they have, or they may not see it as much of a priority as we do.
Got it.
They're
Thank
the
you.
engineers, and it's their road.
Thank you.
Can I, before you change the slide, what is the current speed in that area today?
I believe the speed on this road is between 30 and 35.
Okay, so, but at the end of the day, DOT can say, I may honor this or whatever. Does this say you have to change the speed at some point?
It does not. It says that you should look at the possibility of changing the posted speed limit, but it is an involved process, and the Division of Traffic Engineering takes their responsibilities very seriously, and they'll look at volume, they'll look at crash history of the road, and they'll look at the design features, and kind of like, what could we do? And I think definitely from a cost-benefit perspective, streets where they can do traffic calming features and get traffic to slow down quickly, it's more cost-effective for them to do. If they look at a corridor and say it's going to take a lot of work to do this, it would be more challenging. And one thing I'll mention is that the Parks Department put a whole bunch of speed bumps on Sligo Creek. Yeah, and they were trying to reduce the traffic on that road, and I think it's had that effect, but it's not the only tool, and DOT has a pretty wide range of tools, but I think it has achieved the target speed reduction there. There certainly could be other things that they do in addition. And Parks has done a lot of great things in terms of improving pedestrian connections and crossings and stuff. Target speeds, speed humps and traffic calming devices, we have tons of them here in the county, and some are better than others. And I think it's sort of an evolving feature that the Complete Streets Guide is actually providing the opportunity to put traffic calming devices on a wider range of streets. But again, we're not mandating when or where. It's up to the engineers at DOT to evaluate and decide.
Yeah, so some of the recommendations are based on crash history, and some of the races are based on just good practice, based on the road type, as you said. Okay, great, thank you.
Right. All right, next. This is Norwood Road from Edner Lay Hill Road to Dr. Bird. This is the part of Norwood Road that is Maryland 182. And then when it hits Dr. Bird, it becomes Dr. Bird. And here, again, the same comment that we made for Dr. Bird, which was that the comment was made to not reduce the speed limits, and which is not what we're doing, but we've set a target speed of 25 miles per hour on this road. We do feel like that is the appropriate target speed for this. It is in what you would call a transitional area, and it does seem much more rural than the areas to the north of it. But it also has some quite constrained, I would say, geometrics. It's got the red door store, and it's got the woodlawn. So there are a lot of things that I think sort of set the tone that it shouldn't be a high-speed country road. It should be a low-speed country road. The next road is Old Baltimore Road from Georgia to Olney-Laytonsville Road. A similar comment. The posted speed in this road can be as high as 35. We're just recommending a target speed of 25 as a goal. Comment 80, this is Old Columbia Pike from 400 feet south of Edfin, which is south of the ICC, up to Spencerville Road. The speed limit on this road, and I think it does change in a few places, but generally it's 35. And if you drive this road, it is an area connector, and based on the complete streets, 25 is the appropriate target speed. This comment is on a section of Maryland 108, only Sandy Spring Road, from Dr. Bird, Norwood Road to Dominion Drive. The comment here was that the speed limit is 30, don't make a target speed of 25. And again, a lot of this is a transition where you're going from Sandy Spring to Olney, the Olney Theater's right there. And so we feel like 25 is still an appropriate goal for this.
So if you go back to 108, is it just a short section that you are recommending? What happens after that Dominion Drive?
So
because 108 is a major road, and a short section suddenly changes and then go back. I do not know how much warning people can have. You're just talking, if you look at it on each end, on each approach, what is the speed on each approach? You're just changing one short section to be 25?
If it's all right, I'll come back to that. We'll pull up the map so we can address your question.
Okay.
Cannon Road between New Hampshire Avenue and Broadmoor Road. The comment that it should not be lowered to a target speed of 20, that 25 is what the posted speed limit is, and that's what they preferred, and here we disagree. Again, this is a neighborhood connector, not an area connector, so we feel like 20 is the appropriate target speed for this. Let me know when you get there. Next comment is Galway Road from Calverton to Fairland. Pretty much the same comment. This is a neighborhood connector, not an area connector. The appropriate target speed is 20. This goes back to comment 65 is a disagreement on target speeds on Good Hope Road, and this is really related to issues that we addressed on comment 54 about the reclassification. So we disagreed, but we came up with a solution where part of the street would be an area connector, the other part would be a neighborhood connector. Next street is Jackson Road from New Hampshire Avenue to Paintbranch Park. And again, this road is appropriately classified as an area connector. As a neighborhood connector, because as you see, it goes from a boulevard and it pretty much ends within a neighborhood, which is a classic neighborhood connector. And so 20 is the appropriate target speed for a neighborhood connector. Next street is Loxley from Randolph to Beaumont, and again, exact same situation. This is one of the main streets connecting through this neighborhood, and again, 20 is the appropriate target speed. This is Notley Road between New Hampshire and Bonifant, and again, this is a related comment which has already been addressed. And the same with this one. Probably should have linked the target speeds and classification comments together, so I could have done them all at once, so my apologies. And the same here, Peach Orchard was related to the classification, as was Serpentine Way. So here's I think this is a new one. Shaw Avenue between New Hampshire Avenue and Springlock Road. Again, the disagreement was what the target speed should be. It is recommended to be 20. The speed limit today is 25. It's close enough, and this is a neighborhood connector, not an area connector, so we disagree. Okay, so going back to the only Sandy Spring, the target speed on 108 to the west of that intersection is actually 35, because I believe that's the posted speed. The target speed towards Sandy Spring is actually 25. So it is a transitional area where the number of travel lanes, things are changing, because traffic sort of splits between 108 and Dr. Bird.
Okay, that makes sense, because I used to drive there all the time, and the target speed that we are saying is 25 to, what was the recommendation, 25?
It was 25.
Okay. I think at one point, if you get a chance, it would be good, as Chair Harris talked about, that not for the neighborhood streets, but for the major area connectors, that we know what is the posted speed and what is the targeted speed, and that we are doing, that we get an understanding that what we are changing. Right now, we don't know what we are changing it to, except to some cases that you tell us that it has been there. And it would be, I don't know how that impacts the level of service or anything else. I guess at this point doesn't matter, because just a planning tool.
Yeah,
but at least we know that what we are talking
So
about.
I think when we've been talking about this, we've been explaining that in general, most of these comments, there is a difference, and the difference is really reflected in the comment that's presented, and it's usually something like 5 miles an hour difference, especially when we disagree with the comment. When there's a bigger gap between the posted speed and the target speed, we presented some where we either said we agreed with it, or I mentioned we had judgment calls. There were places where you could make a different decision because it's a transitional kind of area.
So we take the point that we could have added the posted speed limit to these slides. I will say the staff report, and we're looking at page 22, does show the existing speed limit and the target speed as part of the comment. So we can try to direct you to that for the remaining comments, if that's helpful.
Thank you.
And Commissioner, that section of 108 that you're just talking about, that transitions in the area that he's showing, or she's showing as a transition, does go from basically a 4-lane divided road to a 2-lane at the light there at Olney Theater and Dr. Bird.
Yes.
So it is somewhat appropriate to transition that area, but a point taken.
Yeah, I was just wondering that where the transition to 2-lane, what is the speed limit? And if this section is just going to be like a bottleneck to that. It didn't make sense that suddenly, if the other one was 30, we just make this short 25.
Sure.
So that's what I was asking.
All right, the next road is Springlock Road between Shaw Avenue and Springtree Road. Again, a classic neighborhood connector, and we feel the appropriate target speed should be 20. This is Stonegate Drive between New Hampshire Avenue and Notley Road. Again, a classic neighborhood connector. So we disagree with the comment and maintain that the target speed should be 20 instead of 25.
Did the Colesville, Greater Colesville Civic Association just oppose every reduction in speed limit, just as a matter of course?
I would just say that, the person who represents them, he is very familiar with the Complete Streets Design Guideline. I'm not sure that he is a proponent, or he feels like it's generally a good idea, but that suburban streets need different treatments, I think is his feeling, which we have just a pretty much total disagreement on. There certainly could be case-by-case situations where you look at things, and certainly on streets that are transitioning, but many of these they're just almost cookie cutter right out of complete streets. They fit exactly the definition. And the speeds that we're looking, and the speeds are actually, the target speeds are related to traffic safety and pedestrian comfort. So when, the one example I always use is that most neighborhood streets today have speed limits of 30. But if you drive 30 on that street, your neighbor, especially if you live in a street without sidewalks, yeah, you're going to get the evil eye. And so, the appropriate speed to drive on that street, and if you actually did like a little study where you're watching people, your neighbors, if you're going 25, they kind of look at you. If you're going 20, they wave. So yeah, it's like if you want to keep your friends, then you need to learn to slow down. And I think that's sort of where the 20 is plenty found a lot of consensus, because it is a human-based sort of skill, but it's also based on saving lives.
Yeah, I think 20 miles per hour in neighborhood streets is a no-brainer, and the resistance to it is curious to me. Thanks.
All right. So we have some more. I'm going to try to go a little faster, but Ashton Road between Ashton Town Center boundary and the Howard County line. Again, this was related to the classification, so actually, this comment was that the existing speed limit should not be lowered to 25, and we didn't make that recommendation. This is a country connector. The default target speed on a country connector is 40. So, nothing in this plan would threaten a speed limit reduction to 25 on this section of road. Next comment, Darnestown between White's Ferry Road to the suburban boundary. This section is really a transitional section. And so as part of this comment, we would break this section up so that we can modify the target speeds more appropriately. Probably the first section from White's Ferry to approaching Germantown Road, and then I think one section sort of in between approaching Germantown Road and approaching Seneca Road, and then a final section.
I have another question. When you break it down like that, at some point, if DOT goes and does something and they're going to put, so that means that while people driving, the speed limit is keep changing.
So when we came up with these recommendations, they were really consistent with one, in some places where posted speed limits are already placed, and the lack of a transitional posted speed limit, which is actually federal policy. So for instance, if you're on a road where the speed limit is 40, and you're going to get into a village hamlet where it's 25, you don't instantly go from 40 to 25.
Then you have to gradually.
You gradually reduce it.
So all of these consider that.
Yes.
Rather than just the classification.
Yeah.
Because some of them, they seem so short.
Yes.
It doesn't look like that it lends itself to any kind of transition.
Yeah, and in general, we try not to deal with those issues in a fine-grained way. But definitely, there have been a lot of changes out here, and the Civic Association had an awful lot of involvement in making comments, and they feel pretty strongly, I just say in general, that sometimes the standards for their type of situation don't fit, because they view even though they're in the country environment, the rural environment, they're very much almost like a village. And they want people to drive past their area, like a small little town. And it's understandable. They are served by 2 state highways, so that's a challenge. Fortunately, they're both 2-lane roads, but, and again, so, certainly, I think one of the comments that I'll talk about a little later they had concerns about how some of their area types were reclassified. So again, a lot of involvement from the Darnestown Civic Association. Again, this is a target speed classification that we talked about before, so it's already covered by the topic we presented before. A section of River Road between Seneca Creek and Seneca Road. And here he recommended a target speed of 30 miles an hour. We disagreed, again, based on the classification road, it's a country connector. There aren't a lot of driveways or visible residents along this section of road. It would be very difficult to achieve that kind of target speed. It certainly might not be that productive. So 40 is some of that part of that road might actually be 40 already, but most of it is 50. 40 is a good goal. And then River Road from Seneca Creek to Violette's Lock Road. And here, our response from, we had very few neutral responses. And so what we said here is that the reduction in posted speed suggested may be an appropriate speed reduction safety treatment that MDOT-SHA should consider. This was one where we don't have enough data to make that judgment, so we don't want to master plan it at this point. And especially, I'd say, because it's a state highway, our recommendations are advisory only. But certainly this is something we can forward to SHA and say, please consider this. This is a concern of the Darnestown Civic Association. And, while we're neutral, we generally think it needs to be studied. Again, Seneca Road from Darnestown to Berryville Road. They recommended a target speed of 35 miles an hour. This is a country connector, and our view is, while it's only a 5 mile an hour difference, the target speed is 40. That is our county default. And this road doesn't seem to have the characteristics that would encourage a lower speed.
Well, do they mention, so with some of these comments, do they mention some concerns related, like what sort of drives their interest? Like on this road, just as an example, do there happen to be a lot of crash history?
Sometimes they do. Like sometimes they'll say the speed should be lower because they're, like, for instance, on River Road, they would say there are a lot of bikers, especially on the weekend. And so that, and that's certainly something that can be designed for, but is not a basis for changing a recommendation. Because right now, the road classification, there may not be projects that are going to happen anytime soon. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, Seneca Road from Esworthy to Mockingbird. Again, this is kind of this. Yeah, this is exactly the same situation. And here we recommended keeping it at 40 as the target speed. All right, we're on to topic 4, and that took a really long time. Thank you for your patience. This one's going to be really quick. So in general, with the Master Plan of Highways and Transitways, the technical update, we limited the amount of places where we made recommendations for travel lane reductions, mostly because our technical update didn't require traffic modeling and evaluation of traffic operations. So future updates of this plan will likely look at some of those kind of things in more detail because, I think one of the, we've master planned a lot of roads and some folks have questioned whether we actually need to widen all these roads out to 4 lanes. And so some of them are actually very good comments. And so this one is from Montgomery County DOT. They said, consider reducing the number of planned lanes along Old Columbia Pike between Stewart and Tech from 4 lanes to 2. There is a bridge that's going to be reconstructed. DOT is actively working on a project now that this project will be a 2-lane road. So the fact that it's master plan as a 4-lane road, we're disagreeing, but the reality is the next time we do this, we'll have to change it, but we just haven't studied it to respond. I will say that having a 4-lane facility next to a 6 to 8-lane facility where the connections are a little tough, it is a challenge, and I'm not sure in hindsight whether it was a really feasible recommendation in previous master plans, but that was way before I was here, so I can't even speak to that. But this is one where, you know, DOT is, will be pursuing, you know, a more modest improvement along this road, and we will have a briefing for you folks in April. And, you know, but for the time being, we're leaving this alone.
Can I ask a quick question on, you mentioned modeling and how this effort didn't take that into account for a lot of reasons. But when, at least in your, you know, to your knowledge, like when the number of lanes were designated originally for, I guess, roads all over the county, anytime a lane designation is made in the past, was that associated with modeling to justify or provide some evidence for that? Like in each and every case, there has to be modeling for lane designation?
Yes. So our old master plans, we had very detailed traffic operations that we'd look at to make sure we achieve certain metrics, and it was usually level of service targets. We now have more multimodal metrics, so those are not as much a concern, but we still have the recommendations. And so, you know, we're starting to try to think of how can we either reuse those lanes, one in a bunch of different ways. On 6-lane roads, we can designate bus lanes. We can reconstruct them into bike and ped facilities. There are all sorts of possibilities on those really wide roads. Most of the comments here are for 4-lane roads that are still 2.
Currently 2, right?
And the big question is maybe they should stay 2.
Yeah.
And the answer probably is yes on most of them.
Yeah.
But we just can't technically make that answer right now.
So just a quick follow-up. So when we do modeling, so I'm thinking of like M83, for example, and how we were directed not to include that stretch by council several years ago in the modeling for future land use and development. In cases where the current lanes doesn't match the master plan lanes, and like you mentioned, it's like higher, 4 to 2, for example, what do our models assume a higher number of lanes when we do modeling for land use and transportation?
They assume a higher number of lanes.
Okay. So just because, okay, so that's another reason why we, in order to change, so even though the status quo is fewer lanes and therefore the characteristics are different, we'd have to change the model to account for changes in lanes.
So the one thing I will say is that when you get to the bigger picture, from a regional perspective, we only include projects that are adopted by the MPO and that are anticipated to be built within the timeframe of the long-range plan. With the master plan, any recommendation is essentially considered part of a long-range plan, so it's assumed that it will be built. I think the reality is that not every road gets built or gets built to the size and scale that was originally intended.
Yeah, okay.
This one's a little tricky. This one is a project that we'll be bringing to you all, as was said, in a couple of weeks. I think it could be appropriate either in the master plan or in the transmittal letter just to bring to the council's attention that they will likely be making a decision on the number of lanes that this road is to have in the coming months. And if they recommend moving forward with 2 lanes on the section of Old Columbia Pike, it would then be appropriate for them in their review of this master plan to change and lower the number of lanes.
Yeah, so council obviously can do what they prefer doing at that stage. Okay. Okay, gotcha.
The council will have a little bit more information that they're working with than you all have right now.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
A similar comment, this is for Riffle Ford Road between Great Seneca Creek and Darnestown. And this section of road is essentially 2 lanes, and it's master planned, some sections of it to go out to 4 lanes. And it does seem like a Some of it is a legacy from various Germantown plans that provided a lot of capacity on the entry corridors, including Germantown Road over by Darnestown and Riffle Ford Road. In today's priorities may not make as much sense. And certainly the connecting section of Riffle Ford Road, I believe his master plan is a 2-lane road. So there is a little inconsistency. But again, we have chosen not to make a selection at this point because this is something that we feel like we can address more systematically later on. All right, moving on. Area types and growth corridors. We are getting close to the end, sort of. The Darnestown Civic Association, as I mentioned before, they expressed a concern, and I'm just going to read it. We want to be on the record with concerns over parts of Darnestown being changed from country to suburban. We ask you instruct staff to review how these areas became classified and to work with the community and our council members to ensure these actions are in concert with community needs, our master plan, other countywide plans, and the new general plan. So we disagree with not the concerns, we disagree with essentially what they're asking at this time. The change in area type occurred as part of a master plan process that the planning board was heavily involved in, the pedestrian master plan. And they were based on an extensive review of zoning and other land use determinants. One of the problems I would say with functional plans, countywide plans, is that sometimes areas that maybe needed more of a fine-tooth comb get missed. And this might be one of those places. So what we're saying is that the next time we do an update to the master plan of highways, that we should look at the area type not as set in stone, but more with looking for public comments to modify the boundaries. So if people think, no, my area is more of a suburban or is more of a country, let's bring those out and discuss them more directly. All right, this comment 31, the draft master plan refers to downtown and town center boundaries, but does not specify where the boundaries are identified. The plan needs to identify where these locations are defined. So we disagree. I will say that next versions of this plan could provide this more upfront. And again, if the scope was written to focus on potential changes, we would have to do that. But the information is provided in Appendix B5. And we noted that the boundaries aren't the same as BIPA's, which was actually part of the comment that I think we edited it a bit. But there's definitely information in the plan appendices to provide information that people need to know. And certainly our online maps show the area types along with the classifications on the same web apps. Comment was made from Montgomery County DOT. They said to support the growth, the intent of growth corridors to benefit transit ridership with more urban street layouts and denser blocks. However, growth corridors also risk penalizing upstream transit riders as their buses must stop at more of these denser intersections. Planning staff response, we disagree, and I think what we disagree with is that the concept is not a good strategy. I think it's really, we disagree more in terms of how it gets implemented. So our response is that the identification of the growth corridor street type is a critical first step. And that is all this master plan update has done, is identified the growth corridors and provided some details of what a growth corridor means. It has not, at this point, even applied more detailed standards, which I think is really might be part of corridor planning efforts. And so, what staff agrees is that the growth corridor street type should only be applied to locations that are also recommended to have moderate to high densities, as identified on some pages in the public hearing draft of the master plan of highways and transitways. and that because this is sort of an evolving practice that comes right from Thrive, Montgomery 2050, planning staff will work with corridor master planning teams and certainly DOT to ensure that this designation is appropriately provided and applied.
And I think it'd be interesting to hear, from MCDOT's standpoint. I'm not sure if
They have
you were,
comments.
I'm not sure if you were involved with this specific comment or not. But if I understand sort of the concern, was there also a recommendation attached to this, or was this more of like let's keep this in mind as we plan these moving forward?
There's more, let's keep it in mind, to be more selective about how we apply it. So we don't do an entire stretch way out into the deeper, more rural suburbs, because that whole stretch, if we have 600-foot blocks, those people riding out of the further out areas would have to stop at each one of those spots, and
Yeah.
it just slows them down.
Yeah.
I think in the more urban areas, absolutely, it makes sense.
And I think that's a fair point. I think this is, in my mind at least, this is a little bit more of an operational issue, and how we sort of design these intersections. I mean, there's all sorts of, as I'm sure you know, there's all sorts of things that you can do to kind of speed up bus or prioritize buses, including a lot of the things that are currently being planned with BRT right now on these corridors. Priority at intersections and dedicated lanes and other things as well, jumping the queue and things like that. So I take the point. I think that overall, like, the benefits of these growth corridors and the vision attached to them is so compelling that I think we work the operations of transit. We plan them jointly, but we sort of work the operations of transit around them.
Actually, another thing that did come up is if, as we get into more distant upstream areas, this ties into what area plans and quarter plans can look at, is whether it makes sense to have a continuous growth quarter versus apply maybe town center designations. There can be other options that might be out there.
Yeah.
And just to this was stated, but just to reiterate, this plan is simply proposing to create this street classification type. It's not applying it to any street at this time. That will be up to each area corridor master plan. And there, as the comment says here, we certainly will work with the corridor master planning teams to determine where this is and where this is not appropriate.
There's no objection to that approach. That sounds good.
Okay, great. So moving on to topic 6, other highway construction concerns. The first one was a proposal to eliminate the Dorsey Mill Road Bridge in Germantown from the master plan of highways, as this road would remove 3 to 4 acres of land and open space and a cemetery. And our response, and certainly, my division, our division, countywide planning, includes historic preservation. And so, we looked at this very carefully. This is a project that's been on the books for quite a long time. It is probably sort of an active proposed project as part of the Germantown master plan. And what played a much more prominent role as part of the Quarter Cities Transitway, but is still a very important connection for transit and pedestrian and bicycle connectivity. So, we disagree. We think that there needs to be things done to make sure that we design, ultimately DOT can design a road appropriately and deal with these issues. It's not easy, but it is a very important connection. And again, the Germantown master plan will probably address this in more detail. The next comment, again, relates to a Clarksburg Germantown issue, which is this person requested that we revise or remove Observation Drive Extended from the master plan of highways and transitways. And again, this is really part of the Clarksburg Gateway sector plan that they're now considering. So when we do functional master plans and there are ongoing master or sector plans, we tend to leave the decisions on that to the master planning teams. Similar comment, Little Seneca Parkway. That again is part of the Clarksburg Gateway sector plan. And as well, Roberts Tavern Drive, the small connection from Frederick Road. This was originally envisioned as part of the Clarksburg bypass. And again, something that needs to be sort of reconsidered as of what role it can play. The roads shown here might be a little confusing, but this comment supported the removal of the Clarksburg bypass, which actually includes a series of different road connections and was originally envisioned in the 10 Mile Creek Limited Amendment Plan, but had a lot of, I would say, topographic challenges, design challenges to actually implement. And, again, the bypass, we believe, that decision should be deferred to other master plans, and certainly the Clarksburg Gateway is one of those. All right, 2 more topics. Transit is topic 7. And comment from Montgomery County DOT, consider including rights-of-way along the CSX and the Red Line corridors in the appendix. It can be difficult to assess right-of-way needs and developments alongside these corridors due to the inconsistency availability of this information. We agree. Many of our master plans have recommendations for particular improvements along these kind of corridors. So they are effectively in the plan. They're just not maybe as visible. So certainly we can work as part of this. We're going to update the appendix and maybe references to where that information is provided within the master plan. So this comment, this deals with 355 BRT, the Clarksburg section. We had proposed removing some stations, and Montgomery County DOT's comment is that they're conducting a facility planning study as we speak to evaluate adding a reversible bus rapid transit lane along Maryland 355 north of Ridge Road. However, the public hearing draft proposes to remove all the stations and replace them with 2 stations along Snowden Farm Parkway. And they suggested it was premature to do that. So what we actually did is when we went back to address this comment, because we also received a lot of public comments on why are you taking transit stations away? What we realized is that the planning board and the council had actually already taken them out as part of the corridor forward plan, and we had them in incorrectly. So our apologies for that because it created a lot of confusion. Certainly DOT can implement bus rapid transit along this corridor if they so choose, but that previous transit plan actually took these facilities out.
So question, when in 2017, when were they taken out? And
They were taken out in 2022 as part of the corridor forward, the I-270 transit plan.
And if through their facility planning studies, MCDOT determines that there should be a BRT corridor on Maryland 355 with stations, we can certainly come back and revise the master plan to incorporate them. But at this point, they do not exist in the master plan, and MCDOT hasn't made a decision to put BRT on Maryland 355.
But we don't have any schedule or any kind of planning for the BRT on 355?
So DOT is working on a study right now. So they may, because they basically, they came back with their preferred alignment for the 355 BRT, which was, maybe bad naming, not on 355, but on Snowden Farm Parkway. And that was not, I think, seen favorably.
I see now. I was confused what you guys were talking about. Okay.
And I think there are a lot of valid reasons for their decision, especially for a first facility. In addition to the 355 BRT, Clarksburg ultimately will be served by corridor connectors as part of the corridor forward plan, which will extend service from the Germantown Transit Station and the Germantown Bus Terminal to get connections up and up Observation Drive. So there are plans to serve, I think, Clarksburg from two directions, just not on the 355 corridor. 355 goes through a historic district. It's a two-lane road. It's pretty tight in a lot of places. So there were some real challenges with getting a bus rapid transit facility through downtown Clarksburg.
This is good to know, but I also thought that the CCT was terminated. What is that?
Originally, the CCT was going to terminate, I thought it was at Roberts Tavern Road.
Removed, yeah, removed. So
The Corridor States Transitway was removed from the master plan as part of the Corridor Forward plan in 2022 and was replaced with the corridor connectors that Sophia was talking about.
Oh, the quarter connectors,
Yeah.
and that's a bus system?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. But it's not, it will be shown on the Germantown plan coming up, the quarter?
It
and
actually,
the Clarksburg.
the Clarksburg plan is where it's really should be focused on.
Do we know when the facility study is expected to wrap up from MCDOT's side?
Yeah, for Maryland 355, we actually spoke with the project manager about this a couple days ago. I believe they indicated that actually they're going through the environmental review process right now and that should finish up at the end of this year or early next year. I'll just say it's not uncommon for us to have this situation where the master plan, where a facility planning study that DOT or SHA conduct find something that might be a little bit different than what the master plan recommended. We then come back, if the council agrees, and update the master plan. In fact, that's what we're doing right here in this very plan for other BRT segments.
And the reason to do that update is a master plan facility, if it's in a place where the implementing agency doesn't want to put it, then it is a potential regulatory tool that we lose.
Yeah.
Because that master plan BRT station is at the wrong location. So if we then move it as part of our actions, then that allows potentially some developer contributions.
I think it's worth at least mentioning kind of, I guess, openly here that, my understanding was that BR 355 North was one of the segments that was expressed as a priority back when when council was considering whether to, not to remove at the time M83, but halted and sort of direct us not to plan for it. And I'm just wondering why, I know this is sort of out of our hands, this is more in MCDOT's hands, but there was a decision made on alignment, a preferred alignment, in 2022, right? At least at the latest. Now there's an additional study that's taking some time. Meanwhile, the middle section of 355 is moving forward, hopefully with construction sometime soon. But it seems like 355 North, which is the part that extends into Clarksburg, which directly serves Clarksburg, which will provide transportation value to Clarksburg. Meanwhile, we're suggesting removing M83. We've already voted to remove M83 North, at least, extended. It feels like 355 North is sort of, it's a little bit in this sort of purgatory land where we're making a decision, then we change the decision, and now we're studying again, and we don't know where that's going to end up. Meanwhile, we're losing out on opportunities for funding through design and construction, and now federal funding entirely is sort of uncertain into the future. Do we know what I guess my question is, do we understand why there's been sort of this waffling on the northern segment of 355, and why does it seem like MCDOT can't make a decision that leads to sort of actually applying for real funds to get through design and then construction?
So DOT is here today, but I'm not sure I want to put Andrew on the spot because Andrew is not part of the BRT program. The actual BRT study, I believe, was actually not 2022. It was before Corridor Forward. Might have been like 2018 or 2017.
Yeah, just a little bit of history here. In 2013, the county council approved the countywide transit corridors functional master plan, which master plan for the first time 100 plus miles of BRT. It was a high-level plan. It was countywide. A lot of decisions were made as part of that plan that were later, as part of more detailed efforts, reevaluated. And this one was reevaluated in sort of the 2018 to 2019 timeframe when the project was brought to the planning board as part of a facility planning study. We looked at BRT on Stoughton Farm Parkway, on Maryland 355, and on the future Observation Drive. Because today, most of the land use is along Snowden Farm Parkway, because Maryland 355 is very constrained and goes through a historic district, the decision at that time was that we should put BRT, at least for the time being, on Snowden Farm Parkway. We can, of course, revisit that, and there was some interest in also having a spur on Observation Drive at the time.
And I guess that sort of gets to my point. Like, making a decision about an alignment today doesn't preclude future spurs, doesn't preclude future operational changes or just additional lines, like through Observation Drive Extended, if that gets built. Maybe that could even be a purely dedicated busway, for example. It feels unfortunate, I guess, that we're continuing to, I'm just speaking to like the royal, the county is continuing to study and study and study, trying to sort of like dial in a perfect alignment solution, when in reality, we just need to get transportation in Clarksburg today. And if it's 80% good, that's great. That's 80% better than what we have today. That math doesn't really add up. It's a lot better than what we have today. That math doesn't math. But I'm hopeful that, I don't know if any of our other friends from MCDOT are listening. I'm just hopeful that we can move through, make a decision soon. The sooner we make a decision, the sooner we get through design and then eventually construction. We just need to make a decision and pursue it vigorously, pursue it with urgency. And so I hope that they can consider that.
I 100% support you.
Yeah, I think
That is a very good point, because people of Clarksburg are suffering. We heard it when they came here for M83, and it has been a long time. And we are taking something from master plan that was promised without giving them anything, with the hope that something is going to be given to them. And DOT suggested that could be done, and that was in 2017, and it's still nothing has happened. And that is not a good service to people of Clarksburg.
Yeah, and I think just to sort of kind of emphasize that point as well, and again, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, I do remember the 355, the northern segment, was a priority. It was stated as maybe the priority at the time. And it just, unfortunately, we're in this place now where we're looking at years and years and years before it's actually delivered.
I totally agree. And one thing I think is important about the comprehensive transportation study that we're going to talk about the next work session is that a lot of times when we do master plans, we look at the long-term vision. And the long-term vision is it's much easier than the short-term interim solutions. So for instance, Corridor Forward had a red line extension. It had corridor connectors going from that red line extension so that people in Clarksburg could get to the red line in Germantown and then get down to the Washington area. And I think that what happens until all that stuff comes into play is what we have today.
Yep.
And what can we do in that middle ground? That is often not necessarily the focus of the planning department. It's often the focus of DOT. How can we get those solutions to help incrementally build our services and improve our roads and our transit facilities?
Excuse me, let me just, but Commissioner Linden made a point. I mean, hopefully, MCDOT, we can talk to them about it outside of this, but we need a plan, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but we need a plan. So why don't we continue, because we need to end this in about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. This was a comment made,
Perhaps the next 6 slides are all sort of the same thing, so maybe we could, and I think the planning board weighed in on that, maybe we could move to 99.
Sure. $99?
Did we have, did we
Oh,
have
okay.
the transit? I don't like to miss the transit. We didn't get any more transit information in there?
So there were some other comments. A gentleman named Jake Goodman, he objected to some of the transit ways we were proposing to remove.
Okay, that's fine.
So including the ICC, the North Bethesda Tuckerman Lane alternate route.
Could we go to slide 99, just start there?
I'm not. You're on 102. 99, okay. Great. All right, so this comment was the station at Stringtown Road and St. Clair Road is currently expected to be a potential infill station. Removing it may make it difficult. This is a DOT comment, and we recommend no change at this station. It's not recommended to be removed. Page 100, New Hampshire Avenue, the FDA Lockwood connector may be one of several alignments. We're grateful to see this connection included in the master plan, but the narrative should note the other options. So we agree with the modifications, and we have some revised language which we provided in the staff report, and you can see in the bold text there that they're currently evaluating options. The default master plan option is shown on page 119, but the ultimate location may be modified with concurrence from the county council. All right, for US 29, their comment was, we do not currently expect a station at FDA as part of the US 29 BRT corridor. We agree. We think that some of this was due to how the information was presented, but that we can make changes to the figure to remove the master plan station, which is not part of the US 29 corridor, it's part of the New Hampshire Avenue BRT corridor. Comment 164, any plans to remove transitway should be reconsidered. Again, this is from Jake Goodman, and this was the Metro Access Road transitway. And we disagree. We feel like this transitway was a vision. It's not really an implementable vision, so we're proposing to eliminate it. We have a similar comment related to the North Bethesda Tuckerman Lane alternate route. The North Bethesda BRT has advanced, and Montgomery County DOT has no plans to use this alternate route, especially with the development of Pike and Rose. The focus of the North Bethesda Transitway is going to be up in North Bethesda. The last one here is that the ICC Transitway should be retained, and this is probably one of our older transitway options that was put in before the ICC was built. And it, even as part of the ICC implementation, the state MTA was running express buses on this corridor for a while. I'm not sure if they still do, but we certainly feel like the idea of a transitway on a variable toll facility, it's really not needed. And so the last section, the draft climate assessment, within your packet, a climate assessment was provided. This is required for all master plans. And so we've provided you with our draft. There will be, will be finalized as part of the final plan, and there are already some things that were evaluated in this climate assessment that have changed. This climate assessment assumed that the stations up in Clarksburg would be removed as part of this action, and then we realized that it's already not in the master plan of highways, so it's now a non-action. So there's some slight changes that will happen, some impacted by your decisions, and with the transmittal to the county council, we'll have a final version of this climate assessment. And I think a lot of the recommendations are not expected to change significantly. There are a lot of positive benefits to many of the recommendations, and in some cases, some pretty neutral ones. Another slide we have, which goes through some of the different categories that we have to do as part of the climate action plan. And again, we'll go through this in more detail when we come back with the final. And that is our presentation. Thank you. Did we make it on time?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, thank you so much. You guys put a lot of hard work in it, or a lot of pieces to go over, and I appreciate for you all the detailed in reviewing and providing your testimony and recommendations, and we just really appreciate that. And we will look forward to our next work session coming soon. And thank you, MCDOT, and Mr. Bossi, for coming and providing, answering some of our questions. So thank you so much. We're going to go into a closed session with the commission. Oh, okay, we're good. Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll be back at 2:30. Thank you.